Hey YouTube, it's me, Jen, your pudgy picker, and
Kim.
we are here to have another awesome podcast number 7, and this podcast is Two Sisters,
One booth.
That's us. So today we're going to be delving into some of the rules and regulations of our antique mall. This is something we kind of want to talk about because we know whatever your experience is, it's going to be different than how ours is probably run. There's different ways of running it as far as having employees, as far as having vendors actually pitch in work days, and kind of wanted to tell you how things are with us and then go over some basic rules and see how it lines up with what you're experiencing or what you could expect, and also just some useful tips and tricks as we go along.
Tidbits.
Yes. So we've had several questions and comments about do we have to sit in our booth? Do we close our booth when we're not there? And I guess that was something I kind of wanted to address because it was coming up a lot. And the store is divided into booths. And of course, each vendor has a booth or more. And we have one central checkout. So as a person shops, if they pick up an item or there's something they want to purchase, they have people, vendors, walking around with numbers. So you will come up to the person and say, can I take that up front for you? So they don't have to carry it because we don't have carts. And I will give them the number, and then the other number will go up on a shelving that is by the registers so that when that person's done, they can give us their claim ticket. They can get the items that they've had set aside, and then we, after they purchase them, we bag them up and out the door they go. So no, we do not sit in our individual booths and babysit our space.
Yep, and we have three functioning registers up front, so depending on the amount of people in the store, we can process pretty quickly through there. Not as quick as like a grocery store, because again, we don't have barcodes on everything, like a grocery store does. We have to enter in each item's specifics, but we can get you in and out pretty quick up there.
So that's what I wanted people to understand, because when we've talked about previous podcasts, we've talked about keeping things clean and different things. A lot of our shoppers know how the business operates, but a certain amount of people, they don't understand that there's over 100 sellers in one space. So they don't particularly understand that. So they'll pick up something in one booth and look at it, I decided I didn't want it, and they'll set it down somewhere else. That's just the way it is. So a lot of people don't realize. So that's why when we talk collectively about how we're to keep things clean or to do things a certain way, it reflects on all of us, because a lot of our customers don't realize that, Kim and Jen keep their stuff nice and clean, or they have a certain type of item, and then this booth over here is kind of grungy. They don't probably give it any thought, but people who shop there regularly get to understand how things operate.
Yeah, a lot of people seem to be quite set back when they first learn that everyone that's working there is an actual vendor.
Yep.
They think they're just a store employee. I've had people come up to the register, "Are you hiring?" Yeah.
Yeah, so that is another thing that keeps the cost of renting a space in our mall low, because they don't hire employees, so they don't have to do health insurance. They don't have to, paid vacations, none of that stuff. So part of our responsibility, other than rent, is working days. So we're going to get into that in a minute, but let's just start at the top and say, when you become a vendor, they have you fill out what they call an information card, and it's essentially, I don't know what, a 4x6, like a note card.
Yeah.
You fill in your information, your space, your number, your phone numbers, and those type of things that you can be contacted. And when a customer has a question about something, or they need to contact you on the spot, they will have this little file box. They look us up by our vendor numbers, and then they can look on the card, get further instruction whether they should call us for a question or if the question is pretty much answered on the card.
Yeah, for instance, some vendors are right on the card that if they're questioned by shoppers, they will let you give an automatic 10% discount if the customer pushes. Instead of calling them and bothering them, they will say, yes, go ahead and give them 10%. Some will say absolutely no discounts. Some will say, like with me, and I do handmade things, I will accept or I will not accept special orders. So, I mean, all of those little pertinent information for your booth alone should be listed on each of those cards so they know, but without having to bother you to ask.
Now, there is a couple of rules that are the store's rules. If an item is under $25, for no reason will they call the vendor and say, will you take less? Mm-hmm. So if Kim has something in the booth for $24, the person says, well, can I get it less, or can I pay $20? Then the vendor who's working will say, the store policy is if the item is under $25, we are not allowed to call the vendors. Mm-hmm. So they understand that. Some people allow bundling. Like if I'm going to buy a whole bunch of items and I want a discount on that, some people have in their card no bundling. So that's what that means. Some people on a larger piece of furniture will do layaway. Layaways are not really encouraged because we like to get the stuff sold out the door. But on certain circumstances, if you have a large item or they want to put some money down and come in later and pay the rest off, then certain vendors will have layaways are acceptable. Just that kind of information. On my number, Kim and I have 2 separate vendor numbers. Even though we're sharing the same space, our items are individually numbered with her number and mine, so that when we get paid, she gets a check, I get a check. Some malls won't allow for that. Some will say if you're in the same space, you have to have the same number. Yeah. But the basics is if somebody looks up mine, and let's say it's an item that's $30 and the person wants a discount, and that's over the 25, so they'll look on my information card, and it'll say you can give the customer a 10% discount, don't call. So and the reason why I personally do that is because I have had a few vendors who are very scatterbrained call me. I tell them yes on something or no on something, and they totally don't pay attention to what I'm saying. And I've had an item that sold for almost half price because of it. And I did speak to the other vendor, but the point is, I mean, if you look at it and it's there on my card, it is what it is. So... And we don't have a huge amount of things that are expensive, but at this point, I don't want to be, if I'm not there or I'm not working, I don't want to be bothered with it. So when we're not there, that's what they do. So that information is checked first. And when somebody becomes a new vendor, they are a new employee to the extent that they're going to be working days, and they have to learn all this information so that they can be effective and not, encourage things for big discounts, etc. It is required we do a $5 deposit for our name tag. All of our name tags are uniform. They have our name on them, of course. And
our vendor number is also on these.
Yes, it has our vendor number as well. Whenever we're encouraged to use those, whenever we're in the store, and especially when we're working, that along with an apron so that people can, if they need questions answered or they need assistance, they can see us with an apron and a name tag, and they know. Since we're not wearing a uniform, you wouldn't know us if we're just walking around. So
that and if they see you, if there's people that are there that are trying to steal or take things, they will. It helps with the security because they see you, they know who you are, and they're gonna, probably steer clear of wherever you're at.
Yeah, so that's something that's encouraged, that we can walk around, and if Kim's looking in a booth, I'll say, "Hi, how you doing today?" And if she's gonna steal something, you sneaky person,
I am just terrible at that.
that
Gotta
she
watch
doesn't
me.
want to be bothered. She doesn't want to have a conversation. She doesn't want to ask me how my day is. She, you get that feeling of when you're talking to someone, if they're kind of up to no good, so you stand there, oh, the weather's nice, is there anything I can help you with? And, if you have that suspicion, you can kind of keep an eye on that person. The aprons, they do have them available at price if you want to get them at our store. They have half aprons, and then they have like the full apron that has like the bib on it.
Yep.
Kim.
They're just green. They're ugly.
Kim has made one for herself and one for me, and another vendor was asking for one. Now it looks like Kim's going to be making some to sell.
Yeah, because I've had just recently a couple vendors say to me, is it you or your sister that makes the aprons? So it seems like if you get them up here, I'll buy one.
Hey,
so.
Get a side business going.
Yeah, but they're prettier. They have zip pockets for your money and places for your cell phone.
Mine has a nice message in the pocket.
I wrote a special little love note to you, didn't I?
And it's upside down, so when I'm wearing it and I unzip the one section to get my money out, I could see my little message. It's so sweet. Anyway, what do we want to talk about next year?
Well, in that section 2 is talking about wearing your aprons, but dressing appropriately too. They request that you dress as you would maybe in a nicer store. They mentioned Kohl's, Penny's, Macy's. Though you're allowed to wear tennis shoes and blue jeans, they have to be nice, not ripped, not wholly stained up. Tennis shoes still, nice and respectable, because of course we're putting forward an appearance for the store, and we want to, of course, promote
professionalism.
Yes, professionalism.
So I can't buy those jeans that were over $400 that have like the mud stains.
I saw that mud stains. We're missing a whole market.
Can you imagine what our grandmothers would say if they would see that?
Goodness.
They would just flip out.
Beat us with their rag mop.
Yeah.
That they made out of the ripped up dirty jeans that we're wearing.
I know. Sometimes if I had a hole in my pants, my dad's mother would say, "You look like the rag man." Mm-hmm. So Google that if you don't know who the rag man is. Anyway, and it's a shame in this day and age, but you have to sometimes explain to people how they should be dressing, because some people just don't understand it. And I have a funny story about this. I was going to tell you before we started, but I thought I'd save it. We were going to a function for Mr. Pudgy Picker's job, and he actually got an award that year. And so I wore a dress. I mean, I looked nice, and we were getting ready to go. And I said, well, he said, well, it says on there, you don't have to wear a dress. You could just dress and look nice. And I said, well, what does it say on the paper? And he said, it says semi-formal. So he had no idea.
What semi-formal?
Semi-formal. And I said, do you know what formal is? He goes, yeah, well, a suit or a dress. And I said, no, that's like ball gown and tuxedo. That's formal. So yeah. I'm thinking it's a good thing I asked him, because I would have shown up and looked like an idiot. So yeah, don't leave it up to men to figure that stuff out. They don't get it. We're allowed to restock and attend our booths during any work day, an hour before the store opens and an hour after the store closes.
Correct.
And that's just on work days. And you are not under any condition to restock, straighten, look after your booth when you are there on a work day. When you are there for a work day, you are working for all the other vendors. You are not doing your stuff in your booth.
They'll say during the meetings and that, if there's been an issue, if you're working and you're on your way to the restroom, or you're going to take your lunch or something, and you walk past your booth and there's something laying on the floor, or there's a big gaping hole because someone unloaded your dresser in there to buy the dresser, and they don't mind if you take those few minutes to straighten it up, because of course you don't want trip and fall hazards or anything. But you're not supposed to go in there and totally reorganize for an hour. So there's that fine line.
Yeah, and us when we're working on our work days, if you're there and somebody buys a dresser and it has a lot of stuff on it, we always love that. But there are some vendors who will take all your stuff off and just set it on the floor just to get to the piece of furniture. We try not to do that. If we're going to have something that's going to hold a lot of stuff, it's not for sale, it's a display piece. But that's something else that, if you go in there and all your little stuff's on the floor, you're like, oh no. So we need to keep that in mind. When we are there, we are working for the store. We are not there for ourselves. We have plenty of time to do that. Also, every season, it seems like, we have a restocking day where a manager, she comes in and she opens up the door, and she'll either do work in her space or she'll just sit in the office and work on Facebook or do something that's work related, and that lets us come in on a day and during a time when the store is not open, because sometimes if you need to like really rearrange your booth or take a large piece out or to add shelves or something, you don't want to be doing that while customers are there. Just because when you're in the booth, a lot of customers will kind of look and then back off and then keep walking. So when I'm there and Kim is there and somebody looks in the booth, if we're restocking, we'll step out of the booth and let the customer shop, because that's what we're there for. Pretty much.
I don't want to get in anybody's way of shopping in my booth.
Yeah.
Because I could lose a sale. I don't like losing sale.
No.
I like my money.
I don't either.
Give me my money.
It's also, you're not allowed to leave a lot of stuff. So if you come in and you have a lot of things packed, you don't leave all that packaging there. Take it home and you throw it out at your own house, because we have over 100 vendors and we have one small dumpster, and there's no way that could fit everybody's refuse pretty much. Yeah. If you have a box that you don't want that's pretty usable, you can bag up your packing material to take home, to throw away, or to reuse. And then there's boxes up front. So if somebody is selling, I don't know, a china set or something, or a set of glasses, instead of putting them in grocery shopping bags, to be able to wrap them up and put them in something more sturdy. So you are allowed to leave those to help.
Yeah, or that vintage or the antique baby doll that has the breakable head.
Yes, I had one that came through. I essentially made a bed in a box for this. Yeah. I wadded up some paper, put it in there. I took some bubble wrap and wrapped it around her head and taped it, and then put her in there kind of like semi-reclining. The lady, she's standing there and her hands keep reaching out like, like I was handling her child. Yep. So I understand these are treasures that people have found, and you don't want to be, if you're up front wrapping them, you got to be extremely cautious.
Well, we have odd shaped things that come through. Yeah. I mean, the stuff that have sold there, I think of, they've had the sailing ships with the tall masts. I mean, all sizes. We've had smaller sets and everything else. You can't just stick those in a bag.
Yeah.
So you have to take time to arrange them, or scrunch up paper or something to keep them from bouncing around until the person gets them home.
Yeah. A few times if I've had something that's especially delicate or maybe difficult, I'll say, do you want me to wrap this part of it, or do you just want to take it as it is? I give them the choice. Whether they want to do that or not.
I think when you talk about wrapping up things, I think the other place especially was good for it, because they had a booth that sold like pickled beets and green beans.
Oh,
and,
like in glass jars.
Yeah. And you go up there, and just out of habit, we wrap everything in paper. It's just kind of out of habit. And people are standing there wrapping up these jars of food, and it's like, why are you doing that? Do they do this at the grocery store?
No,
well,
they
I don't
don't
want them to bang together. They'll be fine in a grocery bag till they get home.
Yeah, I think at one point they made an announcement, you don't have to wrap everything in paper.
Sorry.
If you have your items, if you have a lot of value in your items, if you choose to have insurance, that is on the vendor. The building, of course, it's like a renter. It's like if you were renting a house, you're not paying for insurance for the house, you're paying for the contents. So if that's something you do in case of fire or some other unforeseen circumstance, that is something that the vendor is responsible for.
Yep.
All rents are due by the first day of the month. We typically what we do is we get paid every other Thursday. Every other Wednesday, sorry.
I was going to say, and
No,
where is your
I'm
booth?
sorry. My brain was like, woo! So we get paid essentially every other week. And the paycheck before the end of the month, we usually say we got to pay rent. So it's a very, very, very rare thing that we're late. And if for some chance you forget that you're supposed to pay rent, the next check, they hang on to it until you pay your rent. They'll trade you checks. Mm-hmm. So that is something. But, when it comes to the expenses of running the mall, they need that money so that they can pay their bills on time too. So it's not just, you're getting all picky. No, they're running a business too. And they want your business to succeed, and you're relying on each other to be successful. So that's something that we need to consider, not just if we feel like it. If they have on here, you are subject to a late fee. I don't think they've ever charged anybody a late fee. They're very sweet people.
Yeah.
But, some people you just
have your limit.
Bring the hammer down on.
Well, it's like everything. It's a rule written there, so when they need to whip it out, they can say it's wrote here.
You're always late. If you do this again, we're going to have to start charging you.
Yep.
Also, a small portion of our check, very small portion, goes to an ad team that is vendors, and that money is used to pay for advertising. So that money needs to get to the ad team so that they can spend it and make the place successful as well. Mm-hmm. So it's not only, the owners of the business, but also the ad team as well. Forms of payment, and this is true for...
We take everything but small children.
Yes. Well, only if they're good workers.
Bigger children is possible.
Yes, there's also a fee that is passed on to the sellers, or the vendors, that there's a 3% charge for processing electronic transactions. That could be debit and credit cards and checks, I believe.
No? This one, the checks aren't included in that fee.
Okay. So that's
some do,
yeah,
but this one doesn't.
So if you ever go in a store and you see, $10 minimum for credit cards, that's why they're doing it, because usually
they're charged for the use.
They're charged for use of the credit card, and a business usually eats that, but that is passed on to us vendors. Now, that being said, we're charged exactly what the store is charged, which is 3%. The other mall we used to be at was charging 5%.
Well, that might have been the company they were working with, though,
Well,
I'm trying to go on the high road.
Okay.
I'm taking the
well,
high
us
road.
down on the low road says somebody might have been pocketing 2% because they were charging 5%, just saying. Anyway. Mm. See, when you're standing with the fridge door open deciding what to eat, Kim's the little angel going, no, have a salad. And I'm like, look at that. Look at those leftovers. Just shove them down. It's okay.
There's a big piece of pie in there.
Yeah. So, this is how our yin and yang of our relationship goes.
Keep each other in check.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
So when you put the two of us together, we're really a balanced person, and we have one full brain. So, okay. So moving on to booths, Kim, what can you let us know about
goodness.
that?
Well, the basic booth, some give and take depending on some areas. They're oddly shaped, but in general, they're all about 100 square feet. And you have to keep all of your items within that boundary of that 100 square feet. You have in each booth a place that is a permanent number, which is the booth number. The booth itself never moves, so that number is always the same. You have another one, in our case, a leaf, and it has a painted number on it. And if we decided to move to the other side of the building, we would take our leaf with us.
Yeah, it has our
We're
vendor
taking
number
our
on it.
leaf. And that's your vendor number. So that's always got to be in plain sight. That way the customers know who they're shopping with, or if they need to get back to that booth, they can remember those numbers.
Or if you have things that when they get up front, the person says, I changed my mind, I really don't want this, then vendors who are working know where to return that item. Because we have a chart that they keep updating that you can look up the vendor number, then it tells you the space. Or if somebody says this is the space, you can look it up and it has the vendor number. Yeah. So that makes it easy for everybody to find. And like you said, there are people moving, getting bigger spaces, smaller spaces, or an additional space. So, or new vendors. So it's, to keep up on that, that's important.
Well, if you have a vendor's license too, because there are some people that do have vendor's license, and you want to notify the management, because in our case, they do like to keep a copy of it on record. And also you should have a framed copy of it hanging in your booth.
Yes, because some of the vendors have their own store, have other spaces in other places, so that is something that they need to keep track of.
Even have multiple levels of sales, that you can have a number for tax purposes on all of your venues, whether it be eBay, Amazon.
Yeah, because if you're tax exempt, that's something you also let them know up front. And once you're in the computer, it's easy peasy to do that if it's an item you are purchasing for resale. We have, in our booth, we do have electricity. So we pay a $5 a month fee to pay for that electricity. Not all booths have electricity. I would say, 25 to 30% have electricity?
That's our general synopsis.
Yeah, that's our best guess. So the items that are provided for us would be general lighting, of course the electricity, and then we have rules about you don't want to go in and have 45 things plugged into the wall.
Yeah, but that's not a rule that's put in place by the management.
Yep.
That is actually the rules according to the fire marshal in that area.
Yep.
Such as when you have that, you can have a cord, but it has to be the real heavy duty ones with the 3 prongs on it.
Yeah.
Then you can have a power strip plugged into an outlet, but again, you can't run them directly out of the outlet on their own. It has to be plugged into a power strip.
Yeah, so there are certain rules that are because of management, and there are certain rules that are like city and state things that that's the way it is. It has to be that way. And even the management has no say-so in that.
And they come in and check, just like the width of the aisles. And they come in and they will literally stand there and measure to make sure that you're in compliance.
Yeah, that's 5 feet. Because there are some who like to ooch out into the aisle. We shall not mention any names. I've even known of a specific vendor who would bring in things to resell and have them so spread out in the aisle, she would tell customers that they can't go through, they have to walk around the other way. And let's just say I've never heard this person say this, because if I did, I would be saying something. Yes, I know, hard to believe.
Not you.
So, yeah. So as far as our booth is concerned, we have carte blanche to wallpaper, hang pegboards, paint.
Some people have brought in that wood flooring and put down
like
or
pergo
tiles.
type flooring in an area of the store that doesn't have carpeting. Our aisle and our booth has carpeting.
But if you do use things such as rugs and that, it is important to make sure that they don't have curled edges, they're tacked down, whatever, to make sure it's not a tripping hazard.
Yes, and there's also an interesting, this is, it's not funny, but it's kind of funny. So I'm going to read directly from the paper. It says, also, make sure that nothing else can cause bodily harm, such as sharp edges on shelves, nails, eye-level protrusions, etc. So, yeah, that's kind of self-explanatory.
On your height as to eye level.
So, yeah, I mean, have you ever been in a store, you picked up something or ran your hand along a shelf and it's sharp?
My arm, I've brushed against things and had start bleeding from rubbing against something that was sharp, yes.
Yeah, so keep that in mind. Plus, it's not only adults who are in there, it's children in there as well.
Well, it mentions too about shelves, making sure that they're screwed on, the anchors are in the wall, any mounting hardware, even for shelves,
Yes.
to make sure they're tacked to the wall so they can't tip easily.
We one of the first fixtures that I had was it almost looked like it was from a video store because it was like the depth maybe a little bit deeper than like a videotape, and it was very tall, and we had to anchor that to the wall because a kid would look at that and say ladder. So yeah, we don't want to maim or kill our customers. The chances of them coming back to shop with us is not good.
Yep.
So that's also something to consider. Also talking about we're responsible for cleaning your own booth and the aisle in front of your booth. If everyone thinks that way, then all the aisles will be taken care of. So we've talked about this before. Now there's some booths that are very clean, look very nice. We have a booth. I'm thinking directly of I'll tell you later who it is. But he has a lot of items that are chipped paint and, real
rustic.
Yes. And he'll go in there and set something down and the paint falls like snowflakes onto the floor.
He has some awesome stuff.
I don't think I've ever seen him sweep.
Oh, he has awesome stuff in there, though.
I know. I told this vendor once, I'm like, one of these days I'm going to follow you without you knowing and see where you get all your good stuff.
And he has such an imagination for things. He's amazing sometimes.
Yeah. So, keep that in mind. You want it to
But
look...
he needs to vacuum a little
Yes,
more.
he does need to. There's shabby, cute shabby, and then there's just plain shabby.
Yep.
So, yeah. Okay, are we moving on to the next page? Are you following along?
I am right here with you.
Okay, then go ahead and take it.
Well, I gotta remember what you wanted to do. No. Well, this is the page I have more stuff marked on. So.
Well, then, good. You start.
Oh, no. I think you already kind of touched one time before about the checks and talking about getting a check every other week. And they can mail it to you if you want to, but of course that's an expense, so you can always have self-addressed stamped envelopes for them. And it talks about to the computers at the checkout registers we were talking about. The price tags, when it comes up through the front, you have to label each price tag with a price sticker that is purchased through the store. Security, we'll touch on that in a minute too. And if at all possible, we as the register people do try to take those stickers off of the item, and they're put into a little basket, carried to the back room, and then they're put into the books by number. So you can get those back with those paychecks, all that were retrieved off of your items. And it makes it nice in going back through your checks to make sure that you were properly reimbursed for items, along with sometimes you'll get your report and it'll say blue vase, and it's like, I sell vases. I've got 100 vases. If you just put vase in there, it's nice to look at the tag then and be able to see.
Because sometimes you'll put 7-inch diamond cut blue vase marked blah blah blah, and when it goes to the register, they don't write all that. They don't type all that in. They put in blue vase or just vase. Yep. So sometimes it'll come up on the sheet, and you'll think, "What in the world is that?" Or they spell it funny.
Yep. But it is important though when you get those receipts. And I really believe it's not just for your benefit, but for everyone's benefit, to go back over them to make sure that the items that you're getting the stickers back for have been credited to you properly. Sometimes you'll end up with a sticker on there that's not your item, or you'll get a payment for an item that was typed in wrong, so it's your number, but it's somebody else's number. So just like if you knew something sold out of your booth and you didn't get credit for it somewhere, and you start looking around and it's nowhere to be found, and somebody else got paid for it, if they didn't take the time to go over their receipt and say, hey, this isn't my item, they could take it back. they can notify the management. They can go in then and research it, figure out who it belonged to, and take it off there and credit it to the right person. So just as
Yeah.
you'd like that done for you, you need to do that also for everyone else.
Plus, sometimes if the people at the register type in your vendor number wrong, or it goes to another vendor, but the sticker goes on your page, so you get the sticker back, but it's not on the list. And it's also another way to keep track of your inventory. If we have a place for a stock number, that's a way for you to keep track of what's going in, what's going out, if you are the kind of person that keeps very detailed inventory records.
And
I think
there are some that do. They
yeah.
keep the numbers on them are never the same, and they actually have Excel reports that they run with that.
And that, it's funny that you say that, because we did have somebody come in and pry open a locked case, and they took some coins and some paper money from one of our vendors.
Yep.
And this vendor is an older gentleman, doesn't probably have anything to do with a computer.
Nope.
Had everything written down.
Everything.
They did catch the guy, and this vendor was able to say, this is exactly what was taken.
Yep.
He had those kind of details written down, so when the police came and said what was taken, he was able to figure that out, and all of his, I think his items were recovered.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, but it was a lot of, can't remember.
It was paper money, there was coins.
Yeah, and it was like over
$800.
$800.
I was there the day it happened, and they caught him, and we were awesomely happy about that.
So it's good to keep that kind of records.
Yeah.
But how many of us really do?
No, we don't. But I guess if we had coins and we had within hand's reach $800 worth of items, you'd better believe it.
Yeah.
Now you missed something important on the very, very top where it says sales.
Oh.
Kind of like eBay. You don't make deals outside of eBay for something you have listed. That's essentially you've made an agreement with that platform to sell and do things in a certain way. Just as if another vendor or even a customer comes through and offers you a price or says, here, I'll just give you the money for it and I'll just take it out. No, once it is in the building, all transactions have to go through the register. And that is, in respect of the business, and that customer wouldn't be there if the person who owned the store didn't have the store. So that's really stealing. You're stealing from the percentage and the items that they're supposed to get money for. Mm-hmm. And that's a very strong conscience matter, I think. I certainly
yes, it is.
That.
And we are allowed, and they don't mind at all that we list things in other venues while it's in their store. You can put something on Craigslist and list the store address and when it could be seen or whatever. You notify, they have a book in the store that you can let them know. So if someone comes into the store and says, I saw this listed so-and-so, that they can look it up and maybe help get that person to where that item is if it's still available. But again, they couldn't go there and then you just walk it out to the parking lot and get the cash for it like you would do a sale like that.
Yeah.
So you still pay your dues to the store. That's just
now thinking of that. We had the old place we used to be at literally had in the foyer a sailboat, and that sailboat was put on Craigslist, and somebody drove from New York to Cleveland to pick the sailboat. So it's free advertising. It's safe because they're buying it from a store.
Yep.
So there is certain safety built into that as well. So that's something that we have, access to. Let's see. What else do we want to talk about in this area? Restricted items.
Yes.
Restricted items. There are certain things that are a matter of company policy, and then there's ones that are city policy. The biggest one of those is no used clothing.
Yes.
A store can get a permit to sell used clothing. So if a thrift store decided to do that, they have to buy a special permit. The owners of our store decided they didn't want that because that brings in a certain amount of junky-ish, garage sale-ish looking stuff.
Yeah.
So that was something
Well, and
that
it's
they
more of an
decided not
expense
to
for
do.
them to do, and that means also, like other things that we'll discuss, it means more responsibility. It means better tracking. It means this paying for the extra ability to do that. The people have to come in and they'll do inspections on stuff. So it was like a whole nother level that just wasn't worth the effort.
Yeah. So it was something that management decided. And funny enough, the city that our store is located in does not have any thrift stores.
No, that's probably why
I was
it's
going to say,
too much
because
of a
what's the
problem.
majority of what you see when you go into a thrift store is clothes. There are a few kind of like mom and pop type places, but I don't even know that many. But really within the city limits, there really isn't any thrift stores.
Yeah, and that can be different in different locations. The place that we came from, there's people that even made clothing, or not made clothing, but like did tie-dye and
Yeah.
had clothing racks of used clothing in
And
there.
they're in the same county. It's just
The city.
The city decide, you know.
is different.
So, but you know, it's like anything else. It can, I think, when you have that, it can get out of hand, and then it can lend maybe a smell or a junkiness to the store that they just didn't want to have. For obvious reasons, no oil in lamps.
No gas in gas cans?
I
Come
know,
on.
I know.
No fun.
No guns. Some people you have to explain things to. You can sell knives, but they have to be in a locked case, and they can only be sold to customers who are 18 years of age or older.
Yep.
Management also reserves the right to determine appropriateness of merchandise. You can, if you have those 1970s Playboys that you're looking to sell in our mall, you can do so, but you need to have them
Discreet.
You need to have a few strategically placed post-it notes to cover certain regions that we don't want children to see and be scarred for the rest of their lives.
Or, you know, I've seen where they've had the glasses that have the nudes on them, or, you know, those type of inappropriate things for little children. We're a family-friendly store, so by strategically placing items, you can do that.
There was, reminds me of another story. We had we went out to eat once, and it was me and my husband and our kids. They weren't little kids, but it was an Italian restaurant, and they had a miniature statue of David. And the table next to us with little kids who were giggling, he proceeded to take the cloth napkin and tie it around David's waist, of course drawing more attention to it. So yeah, but that just reminded me of that. So maybe
there's a fine line between art and porn, I guess.
Maybe David could have used a post-it note as well,
or a leaf.
a leaf. Yes. So we talked basically about layaways. It's not really encouraged, but it's something that the store does allow. So it's not necessarily a rule. Price tags we're going to go over in its own podcast. But basically, our price tags are purchased by the store. They look a certain way. They are to be used and purchased by all vendors. You can't just put your own price tag on it. And the main reason for that is security. If you can bring in any little piece of sticky paper with a note on it, any customer could write their own number, put their own number on there. And
it's like a blank check.
That's pretty much what it is.
Describe it to people.
So it is a security issue. They are sold to us at cost. So the management buys them, and they are sold in sheets or hang tags. And they have an area that just has a number for our vendor number, the amount that we're selling it for, an empty space so you can describe what the item is, and then a stock number which can be used in any way you see fit as a vendor to keep track of your merchandise. Also, we are strongly encouraged and told over and over again, do not have any price tags laying around. If you're in your booth pricing items and you have to go to the front to get a piece of tape or a hammer, you are to take them with you, because anybody could pick those up, fill it out, and write their own price tag. It's like cash laying on the
Yes,
floor.
yeah, and when I was working, the last time I worked, somebody mentioned that they had found a handful of the tags laying in the parking lot.
Oh.
And, of course, everyone's, they probably just dropped out of the vendor's bag or when they were carrying stuff to their cart. Well, that's true. I'm sure no one purposefully went out there and slung them all over the ground. But the point being, it's like a blank check. Anybody can pick those up, write anything they want on them, any price, and they can reprice anything in that store. And how are we supposed to know any different?
Yeah. And when the item comes through, if that infamous blue vase we're talking about, if it comes through, when the person running the register takes that tag off, they read the tag, and to make sure that it matches the item. So if someone does switch a tag, we had a little chair, like a little kid's chair, came up, and it said small ladder. So he said, "This isn't the item," and the lady was like, "Oh." So, mistakes are made. We're not saying everybody comes in as looking to do something evil or terrible or steal, but sometimes things just get stuck to something else. It's happened to us.
Tag falls off and lays on something else. And that's part of our responsibility as a cashier that's why when you come up too, people want to help expedite things. They want to help take the tags off, but we ask them not to because I need to verify that that's the item that it's coming from.
Yes. So that is part of the security. You're also, if you're changing the price on an item, you are not to scratch the price out with a pen and rewrite a price. Because how do we know that a vendor did that as opposed to a customer? Also, people say, "Well, I've done that, and I just initial it." There's over 100 vendors. There are vendors that I barely know up there. Do I know anybody's initials? No, I don't. So, if you need to change the price, either put a sale price over it and then rewrite it, or take the tag completely off and start over. So that is for everyone's safety.
They have the white tags for regular prices. They also have special tags, a yellow tags for if you want to mark something on sale, and they tell you that you should put those over the top of white tags. And then, of course, we do have a special sale once or twice a year, and we have a special blue tag for that. That's 50% off with no additional percentages off. So the tags are all, once again, everyone is purchased through them that you purchase, so they're all the same.
Yes. So it's very strict rules for a reason, because if we drop a price tag or we don't have a price on something, someone else could use that on someone else's booth, and we wouldn't want that to happen to us. So when we are there and we are working with other vendors in that avenue because we want all of us to succeed. That's very important.
It's for your protection.
Now, if someone comes up to me, if I'm walking around and I'm working a day and Kim finds a dresser that she's absolutely in love with, and it says $125, and she's standing there and she's talking to her friend and saying, "Oh, this is so nice," and "Wow, I don't know, I don't think I could afford that though." And what I don't do as a vendor is say, "Hey, we could always call the vendor and see if they'll take a discount." They do that. That is something you absolutely do not do. So if Kim happens to see me as a walker and says, "Excuse me, would you please call and see if the vendor would take less?" I will say, "Well, what are you offering?"
Yes.
So I don't just say, "Oh, well," I call the vendor and say, "Hey, what are you willing to what's the lowest you'll go on this?"
I say, "What's on the price tag?"
Yeah. Yeah. So
point.
if I say, "Well, when we call the vendor, we need to have an offer. So what is your offer?" So she could say, "Well, I'll pay 100 instead of 125. And I say, "I'll go call the vendor and I'll let you know." So I go up to the front, I pull the information card, and I look under this vendor's information, and if it says, if it's over $100, you can give an automatic $10 or 10% discount. So that's my answer. Don't call them. If there's no such thing, or it says, we'll consider discounts. They have, "Will you do a discount?" Yes. So I could call and I'll say to that vendor, "We have a customer here that's interested in your brown 3-drawer dresser, you have $125 on it. The customer is offering $100. So then at that point, they'll be able to say yes or no, and then there's a special little form that we fill out and staple it to the price tag. So when it goes through the front, the register knows exactly how much that's going to sell for. Mm-hmm. But you do not offer to, hey, I can call the vendor. A lot of vendors, if you ask, they'll give you money off.
Yep.
You don't do that. You wouldn't want anyone doing that to your stuff, so you don't want to do that to anybody else's stuff.
Yep. I'm sad. Because I can't show my emoji I drew next to that one on a podcast.
Oh, okay, I see.
My big eyes at the kind of.
This is a big deal.
So sorry,
but
that is a big
do
deal.
That.
Oh, I cringe when I hear them do
and
that.
if I hear someone do that when they're away from the customer, I will pull them aside because a lot of times it's somebody new.
Yeah. And
I will say, store policy, don't do that. Because unless a person asks, you do not offer that.
Yep.
Or there's also been times where, I know, I always buy stuff out of so-and-so's booth. They always give me 10% off.
Oh, yeah.
Well, yeah,
nope.
No.
Sorry.
In fact, there was a story that Mr. Pudgy Picker told me that there was a man who owned a little hamburger shop, and it was like Bob's Burgers or something very generic. And people would come in and say, "Oh, I know Bob, and I want to get a refund because you overdid it or whatever." And one day Bob who would always stop by to have his own hamburgers, would be sitting there. And finally an employee said, "Bob is in the restaurant. Look around and point him out, and then we'll talk discount." And she couldn't pick him out. So just the point is, don't offer, if the person asks, don't just say, well, I'll just call and see what the cheapest they'll go. No, we have to have an offer before we call a vendor. So, yeah. Because when you're there, you are advocating for other vendors. So that's very important.
Yeah, and also items that are in their booths that aren't for sale. You may know they're not for sale. You may be using a basket or piece of furniture or something. If you have something in there you don't want to sell, please put a sticker on it that says NFS, not for sale. It saves a lot of heartache on a customer's fault when they're standing there eyeballing this thing and got it all planned out in their head what corner of the room they're putting it in, and then they can't find a price, and then you have to call a vendor and they're like, "Oh, well, that's not for sale." So make sure you don't disappoint your shoppers, and just put a sticker on there that says not for sale.
Also, I use a price tag when I do that, and I still put my vendor number on there. So if that item goes floating around somewhere in the store, then they know who it belongs to. So that's very important as well.
Yep.
Also, they have certain things. If the customer's card says do not call, don't call them. You can end up with some very angry vendors if you do that.
Also, if we have people that have purchased something but they can't fit it in, we always tell people, if you want it, please buy it, even if you can't take it home today, because it may not be here if you come back in an hour.
That's true.
So a lot of times people will go ahead and purchase something in advance, and then at that point we do fill out we have a special tag that is a sold sticker, and we write all their information in it, including their name, phone number, date that they're going to pick up. Because even though people may have paid for something, you can't believe how many people forget to come and pick it back up. So that way we can kind of call and remind them that they need to pick it up. Usually we request that it's done in a week, but we understand there's circumstances sometimes where it has to be a little longer. And we also verify them with the customer when they come to pick it up with that sold sign. There's to bring their receipt in with them, and there's a receipt number that's printed on each receipt at the register, a register number. So that information is also put onto the sold tag. That way, if they came in and it's like, that's mine, I'm going to take it home with me.
Could you imagine?
I know.
As crazy as some of the brilliant ways people think to steal, they could actually really do well if they were just honest.
Yep. So, with having all that information, the proof of ID, or if you have all their information on it already, they have to show then they don't have the tag, then they can show that. But you match up the numbers too, then that way you know it's that.
Yep. Moving on, we're going to talk about work days. This is something we've hinted at before, but an average space or a single space is about 100 square feet. And for each space, you have to work 2 days per month. So our space is considered a single space. And since we have 2 work days and there's 2 of us, each of us only have to work 1 day a month. And we have a choice of jobs. We could, if you know or are trained for cashier, you could be a walker helping people to bring items up front or helping move furniture or unlocking cases. You could work at the service desk, answering the phone, putting price stickers into the books, or if management needs something worked on while you're sitting there at the desk. We also have wrappers, people who are assisting the cashiers, wrapping up delicate items, assisting putting things on a cart to take out to the car, or taking them out to help load the customer's car up with the items. We
we have someone assigned to sit near the back door to watch the furniture room and watch what goes in and out the back door with vendors or customers.
Yeah, so we also have a greeter, someone who, when someone comes in, you say, "Oh, hi, how are you? Have you been here before?" And the answer we get most days now is yes. And we say, "Welcome back." And if they say no, then you just briefly tell them, we have one central checkout that is located over here, and we have over 100 vendors. If there's something you want to buy, just ask someone with a name tag like this one, and you point at your own. Give it to them. They'll give you a number, a claim ticket to hang on to. And then when you're ready to check out, you just go through the checkout and all your items will be ready. So, and also back bathrooms are in the back. We also have a cafe and a large furniture room. So whatever whatever information you can give them,
I like to be told where the bathroom is.
Yes.
As we get older.
Yes. And we've had people come in. "Hi, have you been here before?" "Yeah," or "No, where's your bathroom?"
Yep.
And usually from where we're sitting, we can say straight down this hallway. So we want people to stay in, have a bite to eat. We don't want them to leave because they have to pee or they're hungry. We want to keep them as long as we can. So that is something that we definitely point people to. So the work days are not volunteer. They are part of our rental agreement. We also have to give, for each space vendor, we have to give 1 extra day between Thanksgiving and New Year's to help with the crowds of Christmas shoppers. And that is something that we do that is part of our agreement as well.
Yeah, and then, of course, when you're signed up to work, they have a board in the back that's put up a month prior. You can sign up further ahead if you needed to, but the month for the following month, so that you can pick what day you want to work, and you'll choose on there which assignment that you want, whether it's your cashiering or a walk or whatever for that day. And then that's all put up on the board so everyone knows who's working, where you're working. If you go in, check it. There's only been one time where I signed up for a cash register, because they always need register people, that I went in and I started to do something and realized I wasn't supposed to be there. They had too many cashiers that day and switched me to another position. So don't look foolish. Always check. I'm good at looking foolish, though.
Yes. And when you get the paper to sign up, you get it well in enough in advance that if you fill it out, you can pretty much do whatever job you want to do. A lot of people might be older and they can't walk. Walking all day is a hard job. So you could choose to work one position for half a day and then walk the other half of the day. Yep. Or if you're working one position, I've had people where I'm wrapping, I'm up at the front, and one of the vendors who's walking will come in and say, "My feet are killing me. Do you mind if we switch jobs for a few minutes?" Very flexible. You can do that. And if it's kind of a slow day, you want to get out there and walk around and stretch your legs. So very cooperative. If somebody's working at the service desk, the phone cannot be left alone, or if a customer comes in and has a question, so you easily can switch with that, or if the person has to take their lunch break, we all kind of coordinate that. Nothing's, like we're five and we have to be told, here, you go here and you go then. And so it's a very cooperative situation.
Well, and you want to make sure that you show up before the store is supposed to open or before your shift is supposed to start, because we're all vendors and we're all helping each other. We're all doing security. We're the ones running the store. Obviously, if you're going to be late, they got to make sure that wherever you were assigned to be, that they have someone to cover it. Also, in the morning before they open, we always have a vendor meeting up front to kind of let you know if there's been any issues or problems, let you know what's been going on in the store, any changes that have been made, any special announcements. So you got to make sure that you're there in time to be able to kind of get in the know before people start. We have a spotlight area where we have groups or organizations that are in the community come in. So sometimes they'll let you know this group's here and they're taking, donations for, whatever, and here's how to fill out the thing, and this is what you do with it after. So it's important to be there in time to find all those things out.
Plus, if the store's opening an hour before the actual doors open, and it's 15 minutes till the store opens, that's in the meeting, you can come in and do a quick straighten. So even if you're there to work, if you don't live close to the store, you take that opportunity to go straighten up your space or move a few things around or whatever you have to do. Because a lot of people who do work there have full-time jobs. We're also there are certain vendors who will hire themselves out. So if you need a work day or something comes up that it's going to cause a problem, you can hire and pay a vendor to work your day.
Yeah.
We don't ever usually do that because that's not really saving money, and I kind of like to be up there and see what's going on. Mm-hmm. And there's also people who have 2, 3, 4 booths. They
live there
all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if you have a double space and it's just you, that's 4 days a month. That's every week. So we're very fortunate in that, she gets one day, I get one day. And plus also be reliable. The store has to be, fully staffed to function. And if they don't have enough people walking around, that could have people maybe stealing because there's an opportunity there. So
some people get really aggravated, obviously, for good reasons, because we don't have carts. They're walking around with stuff in their arms waiting for someone to come up and take stuff from them. Mm-hmm. Or they'll say, I passed 2 people, they're too busy talking and shopping themselves that I could have used the help. So
yeah. So this is really, it's an obligation to the store.
Yep.
It is not voluntary, and we need to be 100% on task. So when we're there, we're not talking on our phone. We're not carrying a hot cup of coffee. We can't help a customer if we're eating while we're walking, or we're out. We have our phone out, or we're looking at our phone, or we're shopping ourselves. That's all stuff you're not supposed to be doing while you're working. So you get that, you decide what day you want. The earlier you get your schedule in, the better off you are. If you don't like to walk and you wait till the day before the month starts and the calendar's pretty much full, you're going to be stuck walking.
Yeah. And then also there's a sign-up sheet in the front that you have to, unless there's like cashiers, I think, are the only ones that are exempt from this. But for any other position you're working in the store, you sign up for an end of the day job, because that way it helps keep the store clean. You can, gather the garbage. You can sign up to wipe windows, to sweep the floors,
empty the
trash, clean the bathrooms. I mean, there's a number of things, and by everyone pitching in, again, vacuuming carpeted areas,
yep,
we're all keeping the store clean.
And that saves us money on rent, because we're not paying for a custodian to come in. We're not paying for an employee to come in and to clean, mm-hmm, and to do all those chores. So this all works, to our advantage, because we are paying probably close to we're only paying maybe 60 to 65% of what other malls are charging for rental space.
Yeah.
Because they have people to work, they have people to clean, they have people to do all those things.
Yeah.
I'd rather take one day out of a month, or even if it was just me or just you, 2 days a month, and pitch in, and I don't have that extra expense.
And the cashiers are the only ones that are not included in that because, the cashiers have a weighty responsibility up front throughout the day because each and every item has so much information that we have to type in for each item. And then at the end of the day, we have to count out the drawer and we have to reconcile, all of the credit cards, and that takes time. I never get out of there. At the minimal, it takes me 20 minutes to a half hour to finalize everything. If there's a problem or you're not balancing, you got to figure out why, and have the managers come out, count the cash that you're turning in, and sign off on everything. So we don't do those extra things because we're tied up with end of day closing. So
yeah, that's important. And you figure even if you do an end of the day job, it doesn't usually take more than 15-20 minutes to just do it. So you can be, I know some people, if you work till closing in a store, you're there an hour or more afterwards. This, you finish your job, you do your end of the day job, and then you pack up and you're out the door. So,
yeah.
You can be out within a half an hour of the store closing. Also, again, talking about when you're working, those days and that time is for other vendors. Our contract says that we can't be restocking, reorganizing, working in your own booth. We're not there to shop for ourselves. Some people do happen to see things and purchase things, but it says you should not be examining things and walking around in such detail that you're missing out on customers who need assistance or customers who need to be, watched, or a security issue. You're not allowed to eat, to drink, to read, to have headphones on, do puzzles, or using your telephone while working. And essentially you think if a larger company wouldn't let you do it, then you pretty much can reassured that we're not supposed to do it either. People do use their phones occasionally, but there are those who abuse certain things. It's so you have to just be conscious of that. You're there on their time, and that's why
it's a real job. And just like I always taught my children growing up, that the minute you walk over that threshold into that business to work for them, the minute you walk in, even if you haven't punched in those few minutes ahead, you're still representing that company. You are on the clock. You are there for them. And until you walk back over that threshold again, then that's your time. But you've got to go in looking at this. This is a business. This is a job. And that's the way you need to handle it.
Yep, that's the way it needs to be because, even the ethics that our parents had, and especially, that my dad would say, if you're at a job and you're supposed to take a 15-minute break or a half an hour lunch and you take longer, you're stealing. You are stealing time that belongs to your employer. And that's a code of conduct that not a lot of people are taught nowadays. Mm-hmm. So, again, end of the day jobs, you're supposed to get those things done before you leave. Some people will do a half day. If you have to break up your days, they'll allow that. Certain things you have to wait till all the customers are out of the store, would be like vacuuming or other jobs that are noisy. We don't want to be doing that while the customer is there, or standing in line waiting to finish to be, taken care of before they leave. We have a furniture gallery that we're allowed as vendors for each booth space, allowed to have 2 items in there. An item could be a couch, or if you have a table and 4 chairs, all of those 5 pieces are considered one item. There is a 10% commission that goes to the store for those items.
Because there's some people that don't pay commission. There's a pricing strategy is that you sign up for, and one of them is no commission, so that anything that goes back there has to be marked differently so that they do get a commission off of that prime real estate back there.
Yes. And again, we're not abusing that system by having 17 items back there so that other people come in and they have no space to put that. If you're paying for a double booth, then you're allowed to have 4 items back there. If you have a single booth, you should not have 4 items back there. It's all a matter of respect and following the rules. And we want, we want to cooperate and make the management's job as easy as possible. We don't want to be the person that's always abusing the rule, trying to see what we can get away with, messing around when we're supposed to be working, calling off last minute all the time, because when something does come up and we are a good and reliable person up there, then that courtesy will be extended to us because they know that we're a hard worker and that we do what we're supposed to do and we follow the rules. So that's something important too, because there's some people that just crazy. They just get sick like an hour before they have to come in. It's just crazy. It just happens all the time. They must be allergic to work or something. I don't know. Let's see. So I think we covered pretty much everything. So no matter where you're selling, you're going to have rules. You're going to have things that you are obligated to make sure that you do or don't do. Whether you sign a vendor's agreement like a lease or not, you have to be aware of these things because we want to make sure that we're following the rules. Or if you think I'm going to go in and we're going to, sell firearms and Playboy magazines, and then we're going to be like, wow, this isn't going to work because we didn't know the rules. So make sure you are completely aware of, what's going on to make sure that you're getting the most bang for your buck and you're not violating any rules. And if you are constantly having your things blocking, what if you have a big piece of furniture and you don't move it and it's in a fire where people need to get out? What would happen if the store got fined because of something that we did?
It's passed on
stupidly.
The store gets fined, but it's passed on. That fine goes to you. You're responsible for it. You have to pay it.
So,
and you surely don't want to pay
a
couple of $100 fine just because you got something sitting in the aisle that shouldn't be there.
Yeah, so, it's not just a matter of being considerate, but it's a matter of doing the right thing. And I even had a neighbor that was close to our booth took a stool out of our booth and pulled it into their booth so they could sit down and work in their booth. And I came in and I stopped and I looked. And then I looked at where it was supposed to be, and the vendor said, "Oh, you don't mind if I use it, do you?" And I said, "Actually, I do mind, because when you're sitting on it, no one's buying it." So I wasn't a jerk about it, but it's like, come on, have a little bit of consideration, seriously. Okay, I feel better now.
I was going to say your rant is
This
over.
is cheaper than therapy.
Just a rant. Don't mind my rant.
So that is all we have for this week. We hope you enjoyed learning some of the information about our booth, and also if you have a space, and if you've been in a place for a while, go and look at your vendor agreement. It's probably been a long time since you looked at it. Remind yourself of, what you're supposed to be doing. And, or if you're contemplating a place, look over the agreement, look over all that information. That may decide, have some decision-making power in what you're going to do or if you're going to be somewhere.
There's no excuse. It's like anything in life. You rent an apartment or rent a home, there are things in there you need to know. And if you aren't in agreement with it, don't sign the agreement, don't move in. And it's the same way with this. They lay out the rules, and for everybody to get along, you need to know them. You need to be willing to abide by each and every one of them. And if you're not, then don't go in there.
Yep, go in with your eyes wide open, certainly. So that's something that we all need to be considerate of. And if we all follow the rules, then wouldn't it be such a better place? Yeah. So, I think we have a pretty good bunch of people up there, and we all are kind of family-oriented. Yep. But there's always a few.
Yes, try my patience.
Oh, my goodness.
Just try my patience.
Yeah. So, it's just one of those things, because they'll say, oh, well, what about this? And oh, that's vendor so-and-so. And everybody goes, oh. Yeah. So... everybody has their reputation.
Here they are again, doing what they shouldn't be doing.
Yep. I know. I've had a few come up and say, I'm just going to smack that person. But for the most part, we all get along, and, you know, it's like we're in a neighborhood, you know. There's some neighbors you may not like. You just do your own thing, and, you know, that's what you have to do. So, well, give this video podcast a thumbs up. Leave a comment down below if you have any questions for us. We're going to start in the next few episodes answering some questions. If you have a question that you rather not leave down below, you can send me an email, jen@pudgypicker.com, and mention on there, please don't use my name, but I have a question I'm interested in finding out the answer to, and we will gladly get to those. So that's all we got. Kim, do you have any final thoughts?
No.
Okay.
You always cover everything so immensely. Such a good.
I'm so used to talking all by myself. It's like I got to get used to sharing the microphone, you know.
I'm not crazy. I just talk to myself.
Oh my goodness, I do.
It's because I'm the only one that ever listens to me.
Amen to that. So, okay. Well, we still have not come up with a cutesy little saying at the end of each podcast.
Oh, it's going to pop out one of these days, and then we'll be embarrassed to death, but it'll stick.
Yep. That's usually the ones that stick. Okay. Until next time, we will see you. Bye.